Older Mario Party fans, I've got some bad news.
Remember those terrible Mario Party games that Nintendo released on the Wii and Wii U? Well, there were kids that grew up with those games, and they're all grown up now.
And now I'm prepared to blindly defend these games based on nothing but nostalgia. So let's go ahead and play these games again after so many years.
Okay, so maybe I remember pushing a car for 30 minutes a little more fondly than I should. But my nostalgia is still strong enough to make me think that these aren't all bad. There are still aspects of these games that I think would be very good for the Mario Party series. And I'm not just talking about the minigames. In fact, we're not going to talk about the minigames at all, since I think it's pretty much a given that Mario Party minigames are going to be fun. We're going to talk about things it does on the board that are actually great and would be really interesting if implemented into another Mario Party game.
So what did these games do right underneath all of the automobile-based disappointment? Besides making Kamek a playable character. What a sexy motherfucker. I mean that literally. My mom would not say no. In fact, I'd be disappointed if she did.
Before we get into it, we're going to go through a quick history of these games so we can catch the dumbasses in the crowd up to speed. From Mario Party 1 to Mario Party 8, the Mario Party games were developed by the company Hudson Soft. And many fans were enjoying the games, and they were selling really well despite releasing every year. But critics were generally unhappy with them. Which, I mean, makes sense. Imagine you're an adult gaming journalist playing a party game aimed at children alone in an office for the 8th time in a decade.
I won. Get it? It's like I'm saying, I won, but I didn't actually win, and
I wouldn't enjoy these games either in that position. They said it was repetitive, too luck-based, and too much time was spent watching the other players play. But Hudson Soft understood that the critics were not their target audience and carried on with their tried-and-true Mario Party formula. However, in 2011, a rather prolific asshole would show up. Konami decided to wholly buy out Hudson Soft, and they completely merged into Konami, which meant Nintendo needed to find another Mario Party developer or else childhood friendships could continue unchecked.
do you think God forgives Mario Party related sins?
And they settled on ND Cube to make the Mario Party games, seeing as they had experience with party games having made Wii Party and Wii Play Motion. And this company would go on to only make the greatest Nintendo games. ND Cube decided that for their first crack at the Mario Party series, they wanted to make a good first impression, and they would do this by pleasing the critics. They completely ignored their target audience and decided to please a small group of 30-something-year-old men. And their grand plan to please the critics was to introduce the automobile. Now this is Mario Party. All players were placed in one car and moved around the map together and collected mini stars instead of coins and stars. And this should theoretically solve a lot of the problems critics had. You were more engaged during other people's turns since they directly affected where you would be on your turn. The game was slightly less random since you could win mini stars in mini games, so skill could be more of a factor in whether or not you win or lose. And it was a complete change-up from the old tired formula. And that last part was all they succeeded on. Winning minigames does get you mini stars, which theoretically should get you directly closer to winning. But since they replace coins, they're handed out and taken away like coins. And with how often coins are thrown around in a Mario Party game, whoever's in the lead is changing constantly, and there's pretty much nothing you can do to try to help yourself win. And I'm definitely not paying attention during other people's turns because you can't make any strategy beforehand because the space you're gonna be on is now completely random. You just pass out until your turn comes around and hope there's something interesting within the next 6 spaces in front of you and try to hit that space with an item or something. So while critics did praise the new direction, it was ultimately poorly received by fans. But that didn't stop this dumbass from getting his hands on it. And this video isn't about the problems I have with these games now that I'm older. It's about the stupid kid who wants to see the good in this game and is getting ready to defend a universally panned game. Let's get started with the most basic of basics of Mario Party games, the dice rolls. On the surface, these dice look like they're just another basic dice roll, and there's even less numbers on the dice than in the older Mario Party games. Isn't that just less interesting? But just like all good things in life, when you shake it, it gets bigger. In Mario Party 9 and 10, when you shake the Wiimote, the dice will grow a bit before you hit it. Now, for some reason, there's no sources for this on the internet, but through both believing it as a child and confirmation bias as an adult, I will personally confirm that shaking it does change your roll. Shaking the dice makes it more likely that you'll get either a low number or a high number. Now, Super Mario Party did kind of fuck this up, but I think the idea of having some level of control over your dice roll is a very fun idea for Mario Party. It still keeps the game largely random, which is a very important aspect of Mario Party. If people have to think too hard about the game, it kind of loses its ability to be such a good backdrop to a larger hangout if there's too much strategy to be had.
So based on extensive research, Donkey Kong is the best character.
You don't want people taking a party game too seriously, but the tiny little optimizations you can do keep people just engaged enough to not completely autopilot the game. It does have to be better explained that doing this does change your dice roll, but the ability to make it more likely that you roll a 1 or a 6 is just a nice little optimization you can do. Super Mario Party was the closest we got to this, with every character having their own dice block, but every dice block was unique, which meant some characters were simply better than others, and then this became the truth. I do enjoy this as a mechanic, but Mario Party having a tier list kind of breaks the basic party game vibe, especially when Bowser has this dice block and Rosalina is stuck with this. And it gets even worse when they try to balance the dice by taking away or giving coins. This could work in other Mario Party games, but this is by far the most inflated economy in any Mario Party game. So getting coins is almost no benefit, and losing them is almost no detriment. What the fuck is wrong with these things? So, Super Mario Party didn't expand on Mario Party 9's idea in the best way, but I do think they were on the right track. I think it's really good to let players make small decisions to slightly alter the heavily luck-based environment of Mario Party. And this expands to the items, which is just more of this. Now, the items in this game are strictly worse than items in other Mario Party games. Most of the old Mario Party items wouldn't work in this new gameplay style, and since all the creativity went into the card, they couldn't come up with anything else. So it is just a bunch of dice variations to fill in the gap, but these options would make very good items in a regular Mario Party game. I think one of the more interesting plays that can be made in Mario Party is giving yourself the poison mushroom, so then you can try to land on a specific spot close to you. And if we took that just a step further to make it possible to roll a 0 or maybe even a -1, I think that would make for some really interesting plays to be made. Speaking of that, just general ways to go backwards would also be very interesting. There are many spots on Mario Party 9 and 10 boards where you get to actually go backwards. And in a traditional Mario Party game, having a moment where someone has a star appear behind them and getting knocked back to be able to grab it would be awesome. This probably shouldn't be on every board, but still, just a gimmick for a specific board would be great. Speaking of boards, Airship Central. It's a really pretty board, and I would want to see something like it again. The board's gimmicks wouldn't work super well without the cart, but I want to be in the sky while the sun is setting. While we're on board gimmicks though, we're gonna take a second and talk about Amiibo Party. Amiibo Party is a dog shit mode. Even though this mode is based directly off of the traditional Mario Party mode, they still fucked it up. Amiibo Party is essentially a tech demo for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, a game known for
robbery, murder, perjury, loitering, merging onto the highway when there's technically enough space but there realistically isn't, opening their eyes while saying the prayer, making Nintendo fans really upset, and breaking all 10 commandments.
So this mode does suck. It's slow-paced, poorly balanced, and tapping an amiibo to the gamepad every 5 seconds has never and will never be fun. However, this mode does manage to do one thing right, and that's these boards. They're very simple boards, but they each come with 1 or 2 unique gimmicks, so it actually does feel like there's a lot of board variety. And they take place over a theoretically much shorter game, if these basic animations didn't take a goddamn century. But a shorter amount of time for a game is something that I think a new Mario Party could use. Sometimes I want to make my friends feel bad for the way they've wronged me that day, but there just isn't enough time for a full Mario Party game. So why not have a shorter mode that can be played in 15 to 30 minutes with a bunch of basic boards that don't require a ton of time to develop? This would also help with some board variety, since most Mario Party games just need a couple more boards to keep them interesting for longer. These boards would need to be altered a bit for balancing reasons, but just a path or 2 down the middle would be huge for making the game mode more interesting and more fair. But either way, I think it'd be a very good side mode. And then we can have this instead of those weird side modes with overly specific gimmicks where ultimately the only thing that matters is winning the minigame. But now we can move on from all of these smaller changes and we can move on to the big boys.
He's not that big, just a bit chubby in his old age.
The things that I think make these shit stains on Mario Party's reputation at least smell nice. Starting with Bowser Party. Bowser Party was pretty much the entire justification for making the same mistake they made with Mario Party 9 again. I think the problem is there isn't a large, mildly sexual, but mostly intimidating beast following the car. But I do think it was a decent justification of the idea. This is something that can only be done with the car gimmick and makes it feel actually necessary to have in the game. The basic idea is you have 4 players in the car, each with 6 hearts, and the one guy who has asserted himself as the main character of the group controls Bowser with the gamepad.
Oh. Am I an asshole?
Each person in the car rolls their dice to try to get as far away from Bowser as possible, while Bowser uses 4 dice to chase them down. If Bowser catches up to them, they play a Bowser minigame, where every player tries to avoid getting hit by whatever weapon Bowser has to drain their hearts. But the Bowser guy is the one who owns the game and plays against computers in his free time and is way too good at all of these minigames.
Oh, I am an asshole.
But if even one of the 4 players is able to make it to the end before their hearts are drained to 0 and get the star, the 4 players win. But that'll never happen because the Bowser player always forces you to play on the Bowser map, where it is by far the easiest for Bowser to win.
This is why nobody loves me.
But if you're not playing with an asshole, it is a really fun mode to play. There are some balancing issues sometimes, and I do wish there's more strategy to be had for the Bowser player since he just rolls to try and catch up. The same does kind of go for the car players, but the car is actively against the idea of strategy, so not that bad. But either way, could you imagine a raid boss mode in a current Mario Party game? You could try to bring back the current Bowser mode, but that would likely require a lot of work to have 2 entirely different gameplay styles. But if you could have some way to have someone who is extra powerful on a Mario Party board, and your goal is to collect more stars than them as a team or something, that would be great. Even if that doesn't work, just let us have Bowser again in a capacity that isn't ban-worthy.
Let us play him, Nintendo. Let the children question their sexuality.
Now that was something only Mario Party 10 did, but this is something that both games did amazingly that all Mario Party games need. Boss fights. In every single board of these Mario Party maps, you will fight 2 boss battles. Halfway through and at the end of every game of Mario Party 9 and 10, you fight a boss in the form of a minigame. And these are by far the most exciting part of any Mario Party 9 and 10 game. They're co-op competitive minigames, meaning while you guys are working together to defeat this boss, whoever deals the most damage to the boss will be the one who gets the most mini stars out of the game. Especially the one at the very end, since these mini stars can't be suddenly ripped away from you. And I think bosses like this would go so far in a traditional Mario Party game. Something that kinda sucks when you're playing a regular Mario Party game is when someone pulls away with a huge lead and there's just nothing you can do about it without chance time. But if there were, say, an extra significant minigame at the midway point, we could keep the game more even. You could say this could lead to the person in the lead obtaining an even greater lead, but the other players will team up against them to make sure they don't win. So then 1 or maybe 2 people are able to close the gap a little bit faster and we can have a fair game. This type of thing doesn't happen super often, so the midway fight probably shouldn't present an opportunity for a massive swing, but just something to close the gap a little bit faster in games that are unfair. Maybe something like a bunch of coins, but I think the best way to do it would be to give someone a powerful item. But there is another problem that can appear in a Mario Party game that is much more common than these that could be solved by a final boss fight. And this is the problem of the last turn.
Oh, thank God it's almost over.
The last turn of a Mario Party game is pretty often a formality for 2 or sometimes even 3 of the players in the game. There's almost always a couple people who actually have a chance at winning while the others are just left to the background. And it's even worse for the final minigame. It's a formality for every player since even if it does actually affect the outcome of the game, nobody can actually know because of bonus stars. And we're not removing bonus stars, so we gotta do something else. If we had a minigame at the very end that could have a significant effect on the outcome of the game would be exciting for more players all the way until the very end. If there was an extra star to be won at the end of the game, it would make for an overall better experience for the whole party. I think the end of the game is the one thing that Mario Party 9 and 10 genuinely do better than the traditional Mario Party games, and I think we gotta catch the other games up to speed. There would have to be an option to turn off the boss fights for purists, but for people who play with them, I genuinely think it'll be a more interesting game. But unfortunately, we will probably never see it. These games have been wholly abandoned by ND Cube. They were repeatedly beaten down and ridiculed every time they tried to make a change to the Mario Party formula, or just any party game formula in general.
Which is fair.
They had a lot of bad ideas and frequently misunderstood the ideas of both party games and, for some reason, amiibo. Did nobody fucking playtest this? Nobody wants to tap an amiibo to the gamepad over and over again. But anybody can have good ideas no matter how many bad ideas they have. For a gaming example, just look at Xbox. They keep making terrible decisions for their gaming console, but they also made Game Pass, which is by far the best deal in the video game industry and is probably making them tons of money.
Or my mom, who frequently says messed up things about other races, but also decided to have sex sometime in May 2002. And especially Adolf.
I apologize for that, but you get what I'm saying. We can't write off good ideas just because they're surrounded by bad ones. So we can't just look at these Mario parties for their failures. We should also identify the successes. And don't just stop with what we've talked about in this video. Go ahead and look at the 3DS Mario parties I didn't play, and even look at Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival for ideas. Truly understand the formula of party games and make the next one the best it can be. And if ND Cube is able to successfully do that, it'll make the next Mario Party the superstar.
Well, that was the stupidest shit I ever said. But hey, what stupid ideas do you have for the Mario Party series? Be sure to let me know in the comments below and frame it in a way that is completely insulting to me and my intelligence. I have been happy for far too long. And now that you've done that, I'll be seeing you on the highway. That's me in the car behind you. I know you don't think it is, but that is me. I'm in that car, and soon I'll be in your car. It'll be you and me forever.